Hello again. So now I'll discuss. Okay. Uh, Hands. So hands actually are. Hands are like like a natural way for us to interact with our environment, and then the same would go for, let's say, like if you want to intuitively and interact with the virtual environment, then you would then reconstruction of like hands from monocular images is important. So hands are like, due to the bone structure, hands are highly articulated, even more than the rest of the human body, and then this leads to like a positive dependent deformations, which are really hard to capture. And this also leads to self occlusions, even more the case when you have like two hands interacting. And then, okay, so what if we have a template of the hand? Can we do can we run a shape from template method to get the reconstruction? While we can do that, like it would require like a 3D template for each hand, and it's also like the shape from template methods are like really not robust to occlusion, so which is really a major challenge for hands. Like there have been like a lot of interest in reconstructing specifically hands, and then there was uh, so there have been like a number of 3D hand models, like a parametric hand models, which act as a strong prior for this reconstruction. So we will specifically look at these hand models. So one of the models is MANO. This was by Romero, and then this was collected. This model was fitted with like by collecting like scans of 1,000+ people, like with different subjects, and then it learns the space of like the hand shapes, like the size of the hand, for example, and then the hand pose, for example, folded or like open. And this is capable of reproducing the like the shape and the pose variability to a very good detail. But however, this particular model, it cannot represent the appearance of the hands. And to do this, Keon, they proposed like a hand texture model. Again, here, with 100+ scans, like the hand appearance variations of peoples of different age, different gender, and different ethnicity were captured to develop like a parametric appearance model. There have been also some models which are which use implicit functions, and then here again they learn like a disentangled space of like hand shapes and poses and appearance. There have been also personalized high resolution model, which because MANO, for example, is not it's lower resolution and cannot capture like the high resolution details. So along with these hand models, like two of these methods, like the HTML and Lisa, can also like reconstruct from monocular images. So specifically, the hands community, they have focused mostly on three different scenarios, like reconstruction of a single hand from monocular image, and then reconstruction of two interacting hands, and then the joint reconstruction of a hand with the interacting object. So in terms of single hands, most of the early works, or like most of the, the works in the past few years, like they usually regress the shape and the pose parameters of the MANO hand model, and then methods vary by the kind of supervision, and then by the architecture, or etc. But with the goal of regressing the parameters. There have been also works which, for example, ensure that the temporal consistency is achieved, and there are also methods which also ensure that the method, for example, when the hand has an object, the object is detected as a occluder and removed from the reconstruction. So along with this, in the case of two interacting hands, it's a very challenging scenario, because the hands can, now there is mutual occlusion, and then also the case that there are like contacts between the hands, and then the collisions between the hands as well. So one of the first works which one of the recent works, first works which solved this was by Wong et al., where they like first like determine like for example like the segmentation, and then like the handiness of the hands, and then they determine like what is the relative depth, I mean intra-hand depth within the hand, and also like the distance between the two hands, because they are sort of reconstructed independently, and then they do a joint tracking of the hands. In their work, they noticed that like estimating like, I mean, especially for the case of two interacting hands, having like a single reconstruction is not sufficient, because like because there might be multiple such reconstructions which really do match the input images. In that case, like they estimate in their follow-up work, they estimate the post distributions, and then they provide samples from it. So there have been also works on like which do a joint reconstruction of hands and objects, and it's like an emerging area. And often they assume that like the 3D model of the observed object is given, and it's also an observation of these works is that like a local object shape, it actually drives like the hand articulation. So this object, the goal of object manipulation can even simplify the problem by giving additional constraints for reconstruction. So there have been like a number of works on the, I mean, there have been a number of data sets for like 3D hand pose estimation, synthetic and real, with annotations. So to summarize, like, and to like give a future direction, like, so the existing models actually lack like the geometric and the pose dependent details. For example, they cannot model nails, and they cannot model like the hair on the hands, and then like also the vessels. And so most of the methods also targeted like hands and reconstruction of like rigid objects. So I think we might soon see methods which can reconstruct articulated objects or deformable objects. Excuse me. So reconstruction under like under different illumination is also like an interesting problem that remains unsolved. And also the reconstruction of interacting hands can also advance by like improving the mesh collisions. So next we will discuss animals. Sorry. So the so detecting and tracking and analyzing animals is like has many applications in like biology, in neuroscience, and like environmental science, and it's also interesting to do their behavior analysis. So I mean, some of the, we already saw some reconstruction methods which do this, and often assuming a template, and here we discuss the methods which are based on a parametric animal model. So it's actually a small area, like with few papers, and there are also no good data sets, and it's not surprising why. And it's it's hard to capture animals, and then like it's hard to control how we control them and record them in the lab. And it's also like there's like much more species of like animals compared to like that of humans, and so it's difficult to have like much wider variety capture. So recently there was one parametric model, it's called small, and then like this was fitted to like the scans of like quadruped toy animals. So there have been so there have been a variety of works which like incorporate this small model or improve on top of it. So they for example like the works like which take like video input instead of like a single image, and there are also works which like train on synthetics data and show generalizability on real data. And there are methods which also like build these small style models from 2D inputs, and then also like methods which are like really specific to different categories of animals, and also like also to birds, and like take a template and deform them.